usually somebody in Hinduism who is a Hindu practitioner will have an Ishta Devata, which is a chosen deity. And even though that person may work with a lot of different deities, the Ishta Devata is like a marriage relationship almost, where that is the deity that they are most devoted to. And that is the deity ultimately who is going to lead them to liberation. So not everybody has to worship exactly the same deity or in exactly the same way, but by cultivating this particular relationship with a particular deity, it begins to open us up to the possibility of receiving divine grace from that deity and achieving liberation through this path of bhakti. It is said in many Hindu traditions that whatever you are thinking about or whatever you say at the moment of death has a huge impact on the way in which the process of death unfolds. So what you're thinking about is what your spirit tends to go towards. One example of this would be if you are extremely hungry at the time of death and you're thinking about food, then maybe you could be reborn into the body of a pig or something like that, where you get fed constantly. But if you are thinking about God or goddess or the divine at the moment of death, and specifically if you remember the name of God or goddess at the time of death, then your soul, your spirit will be directed towards divinity, and you can dissolve into universal consciousness and attain liberation at death. There is one famous example of this. Mahatma Gandhi was shot and assassinated at the end of his life, and as he was falling to the ground, he said the name Ram, and his Ishtadevata was Rama. So by remembering the name of Ram, according to Hindu belief, he was liberated. That is one of the reasons why having an Ishtadevata is important for Hindus, because even though all these different forms of the divine are equally valid representations, having a specific relationship that you focus on every single day of your life will begin to ingrain a particular pattern and habitual process of remembering the deity. And if that is deeply ingrained enough, that samskara, that habitual pattern that causes you to remember God or goddess in some way, will become activated automatically when you die. If that is the most powerful samskara in your causal body, then that will overpower any other habitual thought pattern that might otherwise arise. And by remembering, again, by remembering the divine name at death, then you can attain liberation. There are several different ways of relating to deities in Hinduism, and all of these relationship types are modeled on human relationships. Because again, the Bhakti yoga is really about making the divine more accessible and using these symbols that are relatable to human beings. So the human relationships that we use to model Bhakti yoga relationships with God or goddess are primarily the master-servant relationship, where God is the master and you are the servant. There's a friend-friend relationship where you are God's friend. There's a parent-child relationship where God is your parent, or alternatively, God is your child. And there's a lover and beloved relationship. So to explain all these different relationship styles and why any of them can potentially work in a Bhakti yoga situation, there's this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita 4:11, in which Krishna is speaking, and he says, Ye yata mam pradyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushah partha sarvashah. That means, in whatever way people embrace me, in this way I love them. All beings follow my way, O Arjuna. So that's Krishna speaking, and he's saying that people can embrace the divine in any way that they choose, and the way that they choose to embrace the divine responds in kind. So it's like this, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And even though we can think of the divine as this perfect universal love that is already, unconditional and already loves you no matter what, by learning how to love the divine back and by modeling that on a particular relationship, then the macrocosm, the universe, will begin to respond to you as though it were that being that you are relating to. So if you relate to God as a lover, then God will respond as a lover. And if you relate to God or goddess as a mother or a father, then God or goddess will respond as a mother or a father. So different deities have a lot of different forms, and these different forms can be related to in different ways. So for example, with Krishna, there is Radha Krishna, which is the lover-beloved relationship, in which oftentimes devotees of Krishna take on the attitude of Radha, regardless of whether they're male or female, and begin to act as Radha, longing and pining for Krishna. And through that longing, they draw these ecstatic states into their awareness. But Krishna also has other forms, including Bala Krishna, which means child Krishna. So Krishna was, as a child, adopted by a woman and her husband, and the woman's name was Yashoda. So there's a form of Krishna Bhakti that is focused on child Krishna, in which the devotee takes on the attitude of Yashoda. And this would be similar to somebody taking on the attitude of Mother Mary and worshiping baby Jesus in that way. Or in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has a friend-friend relationship with Krishna until he asks Krishna to become his teacher. So there are all these different ways that we can approach any particular deity, and one way is not necessarily going to suit everybody, and one deity is not necessarily going to suit everybody. So has to be this kind of like feeling into what relationship style or styles fit with you, which deities appeal to you, and finding a particular deity to stick with as an Ishtadevata. And that can look like a lot of different things for different people. For me personally, it was a very obvious kind of thing because I had a visionary experience where a particular deity spoke to me and told me that we've had this relationship going on for multiple lifetimes. So that was very clearly my Ishtadevata. But then there are a lot of people who get involved in yoga who want an Ishtadevata but don't know for sure which one they should worship, or how to even go about determining that. So there are a lot of different ways that can happen. Ideally, it's a deity or being who speaks to you directly, or it's a deity who an enlightened guru encourages you to worship and gives you a mantra for, or you can consult a Jyotishya, a Vedic astrologer, and they can look at your chart. And this is not necessarily the best way to go about finding it out, so different astrologers might give you different answers, and there are different ways of looking at the chart and determining it. But basically there are elements according to the astrological system that indicate, what kind of resonances will go well with your spiritual practice. So regardless of, what deity you're worshiping or how you go about finding an Ishtadevata, it is important to open the heart and to learn how to connect with the divine on a daily basis. And again, this is a process of learning how to love, and it's a lifelong process to learn how to open one's heart and serve the divine and serve others selflessly. But by cultivating this daily loving relationship with a particular deity or deities, then we can learn how to love that one form of the divine perfectly and to surrender perfectly unto that aspect of the divine. And then that will spill over into our daily lives. We'll become more open and loving with the people around us. We will begin to experientially perceive the essence of our deity in other beings so that we can open to this divine compassion and love towards other beings as well. So for me personally, I see the Divine Mother as the ultimate or best way of approaching the divine, because the Divine Mother is this perfect embodiment of the absolute compassion and grace that many human mothers embody very well. Not everybody is blessed with a loving, kind mother, but the Divine Mother is the perfection of motherhood. And that is why, for me, worshiping God as a mother is the most effective way of attaining spiritual liberation. Om.